Hello, coming up today on The Mum Show, we are joined by mum, teacher, ballerina Fiona Beale as we talk about how we can help our children know God. It's going to be fun, so make yourself comfortable, come and join us and let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to The Mum Show. I have got with me, as always, my good friends, Pastor Claire Hooper and child therapist Emma Brown. And today we have a very special treat because we've got Fiona Beale in the Mum Show kitchen with us. There's a lot of love going on in this place for Fee. Now, Fee is a mum of three, a ballerina, a teacher to ballerinas, and she's going to help us talk through today what it is to help our children know God. Good to have you with us.
Thank you for
coming along. So you are a mum of three.
I am.
And
yes.
Where are they? What ages are they?
They are. I have three. I have Maya, who is 15. It's my eldest daughter. Then my son, Josiah, he's 13. And then Loriana, who is 10. So we're kind of out the younger age now and into two teenagers. We're entering the full zone of teenage soon.
So your eldest is 15.
Yeah.
So you must be at a stage now where you're starting to see things emerge more in their relationship with God, would you say?
Absolutely. Yeah, just that. It's really lovely to see, actually, that the things you did when they were younger, that kind of grounding work that you think, I'm just going to throw it out there, but then they start choosing to pick bits up themselves, and then you just start seeing it come through really naturally. Yeah. So I'd probably say all my kids have got a very natural kind of, simple faith, which is just, but I do really believe it's really real to them, and so that's really lovely to see, and especially my eldest being 15, obviously she's at that stage where there's a lot going on with GCSEs, and so she really activates it, and I can see how that's keeping her calm, and I wouldn't vocalise that to her necessarily all the time, but I can just see that over her, which is lovely.
Yeah, but it's so funny when because we talk a lot about teenagers. We have a few times when we kind of go into that, and actually that's so good for them, isn't it? For her to have that strength as Christ as her source and to go to that place.
Do you
know what? I think we can learn so much from our children, though, in terms of, I learn loads from particularly my youngest about her relationship with God, because, God tells us to approach him like children. So maybe it's not so much how we can show our children, but what our children can show us, because they have such a simplistic faith that feels so raw and pure and uncomplicated. I just think we can learn a lot.
Yeah, they can. I find it interesting because, one of the things when we're teaching our children to know God, it's not about knowing Christianity or knowing the Bible. It's know the character of God. How do we get that really into them so that they are confident in who God is? Because that makes a difference to who they are, And I had a really interesting story with my little boy, Reuben. We were driving in the car, and he was questioning things about that he could see, and he was saying, "Why are there homeless people? Why is no one looking after the homeless people?" And he tried to problem solve, because he's an absolute problem solver. If there's something to be solved, he's going there, he's going there. And the solution he came up with was that people need to know Jesus. Because if they knew Jesus, they would see everybody differently, and they would never let anyone be homeless. And I was like, that felt like revelation to me. I've never seen that problem as, something to do that. So I think you're right, Emma. There's just so much, especially in those early childhood stages as well. Absolutely. Before they're almost tarnished by us.
I think that Reuben said, having Jesus is really important. Actually, in our culturally, especially in the UK, I don't know what it's like for everybody else in the rest of the world, but there are many gods that they bump into in the different cultures and religions. So knowing Jesus, helping our children to understand that Jesus and God are, united together, part of one and the same, is really a key to that. We use the word know God, but then they bump into that in school. So do their friends that follow other religions or other cultures. So helping them and introducing them to the character of Jesus is super important.
Yeah, I think as mums as well, I think we can play such a great role in that, can't we? You were saying sort of the time that you've been able to see what you've poured into her really start to manifest.
Yeah, I mean, we're really talking about that simple faith. Anyone that knows me, I'm quite simple in my faith. Really, I always have been, and I know that that's always my drawback to God. So whenever anything happens, that simple faith will always be there, and it's just, God, I will never leave you. That is just how I find I can do life so much better, through the highs, through the lows. So we've always had a little bit like the What Would Jesus Do band, you know? And I actually love that. I know it kind of
I do.
It went through a phase, didn't it? But we kind of intentionally decided to have that in as part of our culture, as, you know, in all the little...
Just in your family culture.
Just in the family. So and then gradually as they get older, those little decisions, it's like, well, what would Jesus do? And we've even had a laugh about, you know, fashion and food and weekends and socialising. All those little decisions, if you can bring it in, we've just tried to be really natural with it, rather than, right, kids, we're going to all sit down now and have a Bible reading and pray for like half an hour. So it's kind of a bit of a running joke, really, that it's like, well, what would Jesus do? And obviously now with my eldest, the elder two, it's developed more into them understanding that Holy Spirit gives them that peace. If they've got peace about it and they've prayed and they've got peace, then go for it. You know, and it's very, and I think that's, for us, really help, just the little things.
Yeah, well, God's interested in the little things, isn't He? He cares about the little things.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important. And children care about the little things, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Children
really
care
so.
about what they're going to eat, what they're going to wear, who they're going to play with, what game they're going to play.
Absolutely.
My Laurie this morning said, because it's a bit of a thing that if ever anyone's got an exam, it'll just be like, everyone hands on, just a quick prayer, you know, like, Lord, be with this for the exam, I hope it goes really well, and it's done. And so everyone ran out this morning, it was all a bit hectic, as normal as a mum, but and Loriana said, we haven't laid hands on Mum, but they were too late. And she was so cute, because she obviously knew I was coming to join you guys today. So on the way, we sort of just prayed together in the car, and she prayed. I said, well, do you want to pray for me? She was like, yeah. You know, 2 lines, but it's done. And I just think God meets that just right where it is, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I love what you're saying about, you know, what would Jesus do? That's it, isn't it? Knowing the person, knowing the heart and mind of Christ. That's what we're aiming for. That's what we're going for. And every time you're asking that question, you're drawing them closer to that. I love that. I think that's so good. I think as well, you were saying about simple faith. You know the passage in Timothy when Paul speaks to Timothy and he says, I see the faith that's been gifted to you. It was first of all in your grandma Lois, and then it was in your mum, Eunice, and now it's totally planted in you. As a mum, that has made me feel so confident that actually there is something as mums. I think God's given us that nurturing gift that actually we can bring our kids in so much more than we probably think at times.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's 5 really practical things we teach people to know God, you know, because sometimes it's easy to say it, know God, know Jesus, know Him. And it's like, know is like it's an internal word, isn't it? It's not practical, but I think there's 5 foundations. Can I share them? Is that all right?
Absolutely.
So the first one would be to know Jesus, 5 daily habits. One would be to pray. So to foster a conversation, begin to talk, teach your children how to pray in whatever way that feels comfortable to you, whether it's you kneeling down, you can pray anywhere for as long as you want, for as short as you want, wherever you are, wherever you're not, you know what I mean, anywhere you can pray. Then read the Bible, actually physically take the stories of Jesus and the story of God, the life and times of His people, and teach your children about that, because that teaches you about God's character. Number 3 is friendship with other believers. You learn to know God through people that believe in Jesus as well, other followers. You find that in church, in discipleship groups, in missions trips, in, you know, when you bump into them on Christian holidays and different things that you might do together, or when you just in small groups, in life groups together. That's friendship with other believers is key to knowing God. Number 4, living a Holy Spirit-led life. So teaching them how to access God in the spiritual way of the internal side of things, your spirit. I think it's a whole session, so I can't get onto that. And then the final one, which is actually my favourite, to know God is to know His generosity. So to teach our children to live a generous life. As God was first generous to us, we're so generous to other people. 5 daily habits that you can instill in your children from the day that they are born. Those 5 things, because you model it. I have so seen how my children have known God through those things.
So would you say then that you've done you've consciously checked those 5 things, or would you say it's just something that naturally cultivates?
No, I'm not conscious. I don't go tick. have we
Done this with the eldest?
We haven't talked about generosity.
No, but it's in life, and you can break it down
Yeah.
into 5 habits.
Yeah.
But no, wouldn't
Generosity.
imagine that, like
tick list
okay,
on the wall.
on the fridge. Okay, everybody.
A good little one on the generosity that we do, which is just cute little thing really, but we talk about paying it forward.
Yeah.
So each day in the car, which I think younger kids, we've done it from when they were little, but I still do it now. I'm like, as they're going out, the teenagers step out the car, I'm like, pay it forward today, any way you want.
So funny.
It's always been like, you just smile at your teacher, help a friend.
true.
Someone looks sad or lonely, how are you going to pay it forward? And we've always just added that to a little daily prayer. Hope we have a chance to pay it forward, whatever that means today. And that's actually a practical way, isn't it, of actually teaching them the generosity of God and how
It makes
to...
it feel real, though, doesn't it? It makes it real, because sometimes the idea of God can be so abstract to children. I think just bringing it down to what does it actually mean? What does it really, what would God or what would Jesus really want you to do in this situation? And it could just be, like you say, just smile at your teacher. I love that.
Yeah, definitely.
Spot somebody lonely in the playground and just go and check in with them.
Yeah.
That's about having a relationship with God, isn't it? That's God
Absolutely,
working
yeah.
through our children.
Yeah, and I think as well, I like what you've just said, I shout it out the door. You forget! Isn't that half the time the way we communicate with our kids when you're in a rush? It's like,
And they're like,
Or send a text message.
yeah, lovely. Go on.
No, I always say it's something similar. We're so alike in so many ways. But I always say to my kids, learn something today that's going to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
As they leave the house, they go, all right.
Do you remember to ask them what it has been that day?
A lot of the time, but they do.
Sometimes,
Yeah, how did it go? Did you learn something that's going to make the world a better place? And then I sing Michael Jackson to them, make it a better place.
And they go, oh, Mom.
So ancient.
Right, should we hear from the kids?
Absolutely.
We've got some great kids who have been sharing what they know about God, so let's take a look.
And action! I think God is awesome, powerful and strong. He's made all of this and he's helped us through our life.
He must be powerful because everyone's worshipping, well, not everyone, but the Christians worship him and we pray to him if we need help for anything. So I think he is a powerful God because we're asking things from him and he can always deliver to us.
He's amazing because he helps us when we're scared.
Benjamin, how do you know what God is like? How do you know that he's awesome and powerful?
Because if I ever pray to him, he always answers my prayers, and I just know because otherwise we wouldn't have all this and we wouldn't be like we are today.
I think God is loving because he sent his son to die on the cross just for us, that's why. If he didn't do that, we wouldn't be here right now, so I think it's just an amazing thing how he's thought of us like over anything else and he's made this, like the world for us.
No, that is loving because he helps us and he answers us when we pray for him.
Maybe if you feel God's love, it might not come to you as in God comes down and gives you love. It won't be like that because you can't see him, but it's like something that goes into your heart and it stays there for you, like you know that he's there for you.
When I go through stuff that I find scary, it's new, he always helps me through it, and that it's amazing that he's always there for you.
You should know God because he's a loving person, and although you might not know him right now, he's the one who's made this for you.
I think they should know God because he helps you and you might not know that he helps you for things. And if you get to know him, then he'll know that you're grateful for what he's done for you.
To find out more, you might have a friend that's a Christian, so you could like go somewhere with them. You could find out more about him by going to church, maybe reading a Bible, maybe if someone's got one. You good Bible and read a Bible. Just all these things to help you know more about God. There's a lot, so I think people could be able to do it.
They're amazing, aren't they?
Amazing.
They're absolutely amazing.
Super interesting.
I just found it so funny because they could not wait to tell me. It was like, these kids are the future evangelists. They're the today evangelists, actually. They're like...
He almost started preaching at one point.
Oh, yeah, they were passionate and in such different ways
How
as well.
they knew God differently. You know, Xavier wanted to tell the story of what had happened. Why wouldn't you? He was a man that walked the earth, and then Grace was like feelings, and then Benjamin was more about the grace of God. When things go wrong, this is what God does, knowing God so differently.
Yeah, and I think like, what was really interesting was that their mums were present when we were feeling, and they were quite emotional. They were like,
Imagine.
That's incredible, because I'm not convinced that we always understand what's happening in our kids' relationship with God, and we can think, you know, that sort of like we know all about what that is, and that what they express to us is the level that it's at. But quite often, the Holy Spirit works on the inside.
Absolutely, and he's not ageist. You know, he has no age. So his presence is everywhere at all times. In a baby, at the moment of conception, through to the moment you take your last breath.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
the beauty of it as well. You throw out what you can do, you know, before God. I'm just going to do the best I can do, and he just takes that and does the rest and nurtures and develops. You know, what they're saying there is what God's kind of nurtured and developed from some of what their mums poured into them and their families have poured into them. Isn't
That's
it amazing?
Romans 12, actually. Take your everyday, ordinary life, submit it as an offering before God, and he'll do the rest.
Yeah, absolutely. Although, saying that, I did notice a way of doing something practical.
Yeah.
I quite enjoyed this. I was thinking, what's the biggest revealer of the Father? And it's Jesus.
Absolutely.
So I thought, okay, so what does Jesus do to steer us towards the Father? What does he do to lead us there? And what did the enemy do that's going to put a blockage in the way of that? I think actually quite often what the enemy does is he cripples identity, he speaks lies, he shames, he says you're not good enough, he questions the need for God and just does self-sufficiency. So there's actually ways that he subtly talks and lies and little things that he drops in that will become blockers. And I think as mums, we need to be aware of that and say, actually, there are some things that are unacceptable because I know it removes them from the Father's heart.
Create separation.
So anything that the enemy does, and I think that's really easy as parents for us to cross some of those lines and to say things for our own convenience. And I think when we do, we actually need to go before God and say, I'm really sorry. Can you bring restoration then? Can you help me?
Can you think of like a tangible example of what that might look like?
Yeah, for instance, I think, well, no, now you've mentioned it. I think, for instance, if we're with our kids and let's just say our children aren't behaving how we want them to behave, and it's quicker for us to come in and make them feel bad and shameful as opposed to teaching them. So, and I'm not saying we shouldn't correct our kids, we absolutely should. But we teach them rather than shaming them, you're a bad person, or you're just like your father, or you're always behaving in this way, or, you know, you make my life so difficult at times. Anything that separates them from the Father's heart, because it's like you say, we should mirror. We should mirror the Father's heart. But what Jesus does is he tells amazing stories to open their minds.
True.
He makes them question.
The kingdom of God is like this. The kingdom of God is like this.
What is it like? We have to think about it.
In the flesh, we want to sometimes, for our convenience, throw a quick verbal grenade, isn't it? Like, quick, poof, like to our partners and husbands as well. We can do the same, can't we? Oh, you never do that, rather than to the kids, you're making me feel really at tension. It's so true.
And I think, you know, kind of growing up, this idea of kind of hypocritical Christians, because I guess that's a message that gets banded around a lot. Oh, you know, you go to church, but yet you do this, or you're horrible to me, or you know, we're always fighting, but then you can go to child. You know, all of those kind of messages. I think it is really important to be as authentic as we can.
Absolutely.
And own up to our when we do mess up. You know, because we are. You know, we're not perfect.
No,
by any stretch.
That's such an important thing, isn't it? I mean, me and my husband, we've always say the better we are with our own relationship with God, and the better we are together.
So true.
That is the true example for the children. The better they're going to be. So actually, it comes back to the foundation of it is how are you with God, and how are you out working that
that's
in your
so
family
true.
home, isn't it? Because actually, the best way of them knowing God is seeing how you deal with God. So saying sorry when you do stuff wrong, when you go through an amazing time, you know, chat to them about how, well, God help me with this, and this is you know, we feel great about this. And then equally, you've then got the opposite when it goes wrong. Well, Mummy's sad because I'm going to have to, I will work through it, and God's going to help me. And it's seeing that, isn't it, how you do it, rather than just closing that off from them. And it being my relationship with God is separate to the kids, and I don't want to show them when I'm having a bad day or a good day. You know, it's very, it can become religious then, can't it, rather than real life. Yeah,
I love as well, I think that when Jesus comes alongside people, you know, the people who are the Pharisees, who think they know absolutely everything, which sometimes as mums, just saying, you know, actually...
sometimes we do know everything, that's the reason why.
This is true. But there can be a misbalance. And I think actually he deals with them quite harshly, but when you look at the people like the woman at the well, who had no foundation or no knowledge there, when you look at the vulnerable, when you look at the guy that was possessed, and how he deals with those people, it's with such a tender heart, and even the guy next to him on the cross. And I love the fact that actually Jesus condemns those that think they know everything and that preach something and become religious about it, but he doesn't condemn a question from somebody that's searching, that's and I think as parents,
good observation.
It's really good for us to set that standard with our kids, that you can ask me any question and it's not going to be off bounds. You can challenge me, and you've watched that a bit, haven't you?
Absolutely, yeah. My eldest, who's 13, I would like to think that we've always kind of fostered that kind of, there's no topic off limits. It's okay to disagree. You know that it's actually using conflict sometimes or disagreements as a way of deepening connection and deepening communication and relationship. But it is challenging, and kind of just from my own perspective, I did grow up. I have got a foundation in church and in faith, but my husband hasn't, and he is a Christian now, but he's coming from his faith in a very, very different way. And often our children have to manage the differences and the different ways in which we kind of demonstrate our faith and our relationship with God. And I suppose it goes back to that. It's so important for them to be able to find their own way. As long as we talk really openly and offer that openness of communication and being really real and authentic, that's all we can do, really.
It's a lifelong journey, isn't it?
It is lifelong.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm a much better person now than I was 20 years ago when I got married, than 18 years ago when I had my first child. And I'm probably still going to be learning about me and about God and about life hopefully till the day I die. So it's a lifelong journey.
Allowing them to walk that.
And not being so kind of... because I guess, at the moment with my eldest, who is kind of really questioning her faith and what her belief system is, kind of not taking it personally. And not getting so kind of caught up with that myself and anxious about it, and just knowing, do you know what? I just need to let her go through this journey and stay as solid and as kind of grounded in it, and just share what I can and live out, model what I can about what it is, and pray. Absolutely, cover her in prayer. I cover that child in prayer every day.
I think you mentioned the word communication. That's like just a massive one, isn't it? We talk about communication and then being consistent. Like consistent goes along with communication, doesn't it? It's like constantly making sure you communicate, and you're doing that. If you've got that communication, I think that's so key, because then they're not going to, obviously with social media now, with all our teenagers, where we're going with that, it's, we've always had it, we're not just going to go and shut ourselves in the room and go on Instagram. And if I didn't know anything about it and I wasn't interested in it, where would our children go? In the room, Mum doesn't know anything about this, they'd shut themselves off, wouldn't they? If it's like, open table, let's talk about Instagram, let's talk about the fact that your friend is maybe sexting her boyfriend, all these topics
real issues.
That, nothing is too shocking. Let's bring it to the table and talk about it. And then the communication is there, and they, hopefully, if they struggle, won't feel like they can't talk to you about it.
I think developing that relationship, we sometimes believe that it's a big shock to God when he finds out human beings aren't as connected. It's that his whole plan is to reconnect with us over time. What the very beginning was how it was all supposed to be. Then we all know happened. Adam and Eve ate that apple, and we'll all have words with him when we get to heaven for the fall. But after that, life then is a lifelong journey to reconnect with our Father in heaven, and that's what it is. It's the open conversation. holding things lightly and not squeezing the life out of them, and having a fresh approach to meeting God.
Yeah, absolutely.
New every day.
We had a really interesting moment. My little boy decided that God wasn't real, but Santa was, because God does never provide a present on Christmas morning. And I was like, but okay. And we'd never done Santa anyway, because Lilia had never grown up with Santa. I'd never grown up with Santa. We'd forgot, if I'm honest, we'd forgot to cultivate anything around Santa. We were living in Spain. It was all the Three Kings. So my daughter was adamant. So there wasn't a Santa anywhere. So it just wasn't in our environment at all, not on the radar. And so Lilia was well clued up. You know, the idea of a Santa was ridiculous to her, but the idea of a Santa to Reuben was like, this is what all my friends are saying, he is real. And so I could hear them having this really long discussion in the back of the car, and I was like, oh, I don't know when to interject, I don't know when to say something, I don't know if to just let them lead it through. And then eventually Reuben said, out of frustration, he was like, Santa is real because otherwise all the people who aren't Christians would be expecting Christmas presents on Christmas morning, and so he must do it. Like the idea that not everyone in the whole world can be in on this plan. It was getting really intense. So I thought, right, I need to get off of Santa because this is becoming very stressful to him. And I need to kind of navigate this. So I thought I'll pick up on the thing about God. And so I said to him, do you know what, Reuben, I'm going to tell you that God is just so incredible that he looked after you before you were born. And I told him a story that basically we'd had some problems after Lilia. She'd been a high risk pregnancy. We'd already lost a child. And when I was pregnant with Reuben, we didn't know it. And I'd gone to have scans and have all of that done, and they thought there was a problem with me, so they'd given me some medication, but the medication would have terminated the pregnancy, like the two wouldn't have gone together. And as I was putting Lilia to bed, I heard really clearly, you're going to have a boy, which made me chuckle, because I'm like, sounds like Mary, right? Sounds like the nativity story. So I kind of so I was like, that's hilarious. But I kind of received the promise. And actually, when I then took, when I took the medication, that came back to me again. You're going to have a baby boy. And along came Reuben. We didn't take the medication. My mum had called me just before, as the voice came to me, my mum called me and said, what's happening? And I said, I'm about to take this tablet. She said, don't take it. Just don't take it, go and get checked. So it was stopped.
Wow.
It was stopped in action. So we called him Reuben, behold a son.
Love that.
And we shared that story with him. And do you know what? It has become his life's message.
Wow.
And the Bible talks about the power of the testimony.
Absolutely.
And I think, let's not deprive our kids of their story.
Absolutely.
And what comes in their way.
Yeah.
And that is him knowing God for himself, what God did for him in the very beginning is very personal, and actually each one of our children will have those stories to tell.
It's just pulling them out and finding them, isn't it?
Sometimes just reminding them, isn't it, in their everyday life, do you remember what the lengths that God went for you? So we had a similar thing, but much older, with my son and his schooling, and I had a vision of where he would end up, actually, because we went and looked at all these schools, and it was a private school. But in the natural, we knew we couldn't afford to actually send him to this private school, but I knew I'd pictured him. I had a vision of him there, and a few years before I'd had a vision of my daughter at a different school, so they're actually at different schools. So I was like, I know that, I just believe that this is his school. So we prayed with him that night and he loved it. And I said, well, if this is the right school for you, we're just going to have to believe that God will go to such lengths. We know that he would for you. And if it's right, it will happen. And that's actually the story. It did happen. Some amazing, long-term family friends basically got told that they needed to phone us and say, we need to provide some secondary school education. So he's literally at private school.
And that is so beautiful, because you started by saying about this simple faith, and that is just the exact demonstration of it, isn't it?
He's been through a bit of bullying, but we're able to now say, but do you know what, God is teaching you something through that, and deal with it all, but you are meant to be at that school. There's a fight going to happen because you're meant to be a light at that school, because of the lengths God went to get him there, and that's helped him with the hard times, which is great.
Fee, you've been so inspiring. Thank you so much for joining us in this conversation. We've absolutely loved it. Well, I hope that has been helpful for you. If you're still left wondering and thinking you'd like to hear some more, then we have blogged about this on our website, and you can catch that at promisecollective.co.uk. And we'll see you next time.
Hello parents, don't forget to say hello We're at promisecollective.co.uk. Bye!